In this video, we're going to look at the very basics of dimensioning. Now, what I've got is the previous building that we looked at to start off with our orthogonal drawing, our third angle orthogonal drawing, so that I've just tidied up the drawing. And you can see that here is the top view, which is labeled as top view. Our front view is directly below it, so that we have our lines, one directly below. I'm just going to very fine line down there. These all correlate. All of these lines line up. Okay, so all of these parts, they're all coordinated on the screen. The front view lies directly below the top view. The right side view is on the right side of the drawing. The left side view of the building is on the left side, directly opposite the front view in each case. Now, our dimensioning. What we try to do is space out our dimensions so that not all of the dimensions appear on the one view. Now, this is appropriate in this particular drawing. So what I have done is I've already created my extension lines. Now, the extension lines, in this case, in the top view, they start about 1 to 2 millimeters away from the drawing. So in here, that distance there, I just draw that, that's about 1 to 2 millimeters. And this extension line also goes about 1 to 2 millimeters beyond our dimension line. So that this is our extension line, starts about 1 to 2 millimeters away from our drawing, doesn't touch the drawing. Up this end, doesn't touch the drawing. And it also extends about 1 to 2 millimeters beyond our dimension line in this case. In this case, that dimension from my drawing is approximately 73 millimeters. And what I'm going to do is just place the arrows just on each end. They're about 3 millimeters long, about 1 to 2 millimeters wide. So that about 3 mil long, about 1 to 2 mil wide. Now that happens to be 73, and I simply write 73 directly above the dimension line so that it appears quite neatly there. And there is a very fine gap between the dimension line and the dimension itself. So that's 73. On this end of the drawing, what I'm going to do is place the width of the different components so that, again, I've created my dimension line, my extension lines, gap, gap, extension, extension. And this part, we could call that the clock tower section of it. What I've not done is try to place these so that they are crowded. Now, these are approximately 1 centimetre away from my drawing, about 1 centimetre away. This one is obviously further, however, it doesn't crowd this dimension. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just place my arrows on it, about 3 millimetres by about 1.5 to 2 millimetres wide. Some of your work might say to colour those in. I tend not to. And what we do is we dimension them from the right-hand side of the drawing. This is the right-hand side of my drawing, right side view, right-hand side, so that I always look, and just for formality, I try to keep the dimensions always. So in this case, that happens to be 32. That happens to be 12. Clearly indicated, 3212, always looking from the right side of the drawing so that I'm not looking backwards at an angle. Okay, always from the right-hand side. Now, I'm just going to go through some of these. The front view, in this case, this happens to be 63. I write that neatly, just above the line. This happens to be 16, neatly, just above the line. And it's easier for me to come in from the edge of the drawing, put in my arrows, and you can see that my extension line here is about 1 to 2 millimeters above my dimension line. I try and keep, or I always keep, I must say, I always keep, if I've got a dimension here and I've got a dimension here, I keep them in the one line. I don't want a line here and a line up here where I'm sort of zigzagging things. 16 here, 63 there. Okay, so again, over this side, I've got a different point. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is just move away from the drawing on this side. So away from there. So this is the gap, 1 to 2 millimeters, 1 to 2 millimeters. Extension line goes about 1 to 2 millimeters beyond the dimension line. So where the dimension sits is the dimension line. This happens to be 39 millimeters. I always leave a gap between the dimension line and the dimension. So in that place, it's placed there. On the left side view, what I have is 2 dimensions. This one happens to be, and I'll just place those arrows in there and there. I try not to crowd these dimensions and dimension lines. That happens to be 17. That happens to be 22. So again, making sure your dimension line lies about a centimetre, 10 millimetres away from your drawing, about a 1 to 2 millimetre gap between your extension line and the actual object, 1 to 2 millimeters between the extension line and the object. And that also adds onto that so that these project a little bit past. Okay, this is what we do all around. Now, if you like, you can also put in your third angle drawing indicator on this side, okay, which is just that small sketch. I'm not going to place it on this drawing, but just bear that in mind. Okay, again, make sure your views are labeled. Top view, front view, right side view, left side view. There is my dimension line. In this case, that indicates that's 73 millimeters long. These are my extension lines. Extension line, small gap. That gap goes beyond so that we have that gap there. Whatever this gap here, 1 to 2 millimeters, goes beyond is added onto that part there so that it all reads neat and tidy. Again, dimensions, vertical dimensions, as you might say. Horizontal dimensions are placed just above the dimension line, a 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter gap. And all of the vertical dimensions, if we look from the right-hand side, and we could say that this is our right-hand side looking this way, the right-hand side of the drawing, our dimensions are placed in the position so that that's 32, that happens to be 12. Okay, in this 17, 22, and this side here, 39. So make sure you place your dimensions as I've shown, keeping in mind those very, very basic rules. If you do that, follow that, there will not be any issues. In the next drawing, what we're going to look at is sectioning, and what I'm going to do is place some center lines on that.